Friends and viewer, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This is a novel written, a fairy tale novel, not only for the children, but also for the adult also. It is a very interesting and a very famous Alice Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Alice sits on a riverbank on a warm summer day, drowsily reading over sister's shoulder when she catches a sight of a white rabbit in a waistcoat running by her. The white rabbit pulls out a pocket watch, exclaims that he is late, and pops down a rabbit hole. Alice follows the white rabbit down the hole and comes upon a great hallway lined with doors. She finds a small door that she opens using a key she discovers on a nearby table. Through the door, she sees a beautiful garden, and Alice begins to cry when she realizes she cannot fit through the door. She finds a bottle marked "Drink Me" and downs the content. She shrinks down to the right size to enter the door, but cannot enter since she has left the key on the table top above her head. Alice discovers a cake marked "Eat Me," which causes her to grow to an inordinately large height. Still unable to enter the garden, Alice begins to cry again, and her giant tears form a pool at her feet. As she cries, Alice shrinks and falls into the pool of tears. The pool of tears becomes sea, and she steals water. She meets a mouse. The mouse accompanies Alice to shore where a number of animals stand gathered on a bank. After a caucus race, Alice scars the animals, away the tails of her cat, Dina, and finds herself alone again. Alice meets the white rabbit again, who mistakes her for a servant and sends her off to fetch his things. While in the white rabbit house, Alice drinks an unmarked bottle of liquid and grows to the size of a room. The white rabbit returns to his house, fuming at how now giant Alice, but she swats him and his servant away with her giant hand. The animals outside try to get her out of the house by throwing rocks at her, which inexplicably transform into cakes when they land in the house. Alice eats one of the cake, which causes her to shrink to a small size. She wanders off into a forest where she meets a caterpillar sitting on a mushroom and smoking a hookah, a water pipe. The caterpillar and Alice get into an argument, but before the caterpillar crawls away in disgust, he tells Alice that different parts of the mushroom will make her grow or shrink. Alice tastes a part of the mushroom, and her neck stretches above the trees. A pigeon sees her and attacks, deeming her a serpent hungry for pigeon eggs. Alice eats another part of the mushroom and shrinks down to a normal height. She wanders until she comes across the house of the Duchess. She enters and finds the Duchess, who is nursing a squealing baby as well as a grinning Cheshire cat, and a cock who tosses massive amounts of pepper into the cauldron of soup. The Duchess behaves rudely to Alice and then depart to prepare for a croquet game with the Queen. As she leaves, the Duchess hands Alice the baby, which Alice discovers is a pig. Alice lets the pig go and enters the forest, where she meets the Cheshire cat again. The Cheshire cat explains to Alice that everyone in Wonderland is mad, including Alice herself. The Cheshire cat gives direction to the March Hare house and fades away to nothing but a floating green. Alice travels to the March Hare's house to find the March Hare. and the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse having tea together. Treated rudely by all three, Alice stood by the tea party uninvited. She learns that they have wrong time and are trapped in perpetual tea time. After a final courtesy, Alice leaves and journeys through the forest. She finds a tree with a door in its side and travels through it to find herself back into the great hall. She takes the key, uses the mushrooms to shrink down and enter the garden. After saving several gardeners from the temper of Queen of Hearts, Alice joins the Queen in the strange game of croquet. The croquet ground is hilly, the mallets and the balls are live flaming and hedgehogs, and the Queen tears about, frantically calling for the other player, Executioner. Amidst this madness, Alice bumps into the Cheshire Cat again, who asks her how she is doing. The King of Hearts interrupts their conversation and attempts to bully the Cheshire Cat, who impudently dismisses the King. The King takes offense and arranges for the Cheshire Cat execution, but since the Cheshire Cat is now only a head floating in a mid-air, no one can agree on how to behead it. The Duchess approaches Alice and attempts to befriend her, but the Duchess makes Alice feel uneasy. The Queen of Hearts chases the Duchess off and tells Alice that she must visit the Mock Turtle to hear his story. The Queen of Hearts sends Alice with the Gryphon as her escort to meet the Mock Turtle. Alice shares her strange experiences with the Mock Turtle and the Gryphon, who listen sympathetically and comment on the strainer of her adventure. After listening to the Mock Turtle story, they hear an announcement that a trial is about to begin, and the Gryphon brings Alice back to the coquet ground. A knave heart stand trial of stealing the Queen Tart. The King of Hearts leads the proceeding, and various witnesses approach the stand to give evidence. The Mad Hatter and Cock both give their testimony, but none of it makes any sense. The White Rabbit, acting as a herald, calls Alice to the witness stand. The King goes nowhere with his line of questioning, but takes encouragement when the White Rabbit provides new evidence in the form of a letter written by the knave. The letter turns out to be a poem, which the King interprets as an admission of guilt on the part of the knave. Alice believes the note to be a nonsense and protests the King's interpretation. The Queen became furious with Alice and orders her beheading, but Alice grows to huge size and knocks over the Queen's army of playing cards. All of a sudden, Alice finds herself awake on her sister's lap back at the river bank. She tells her sister about her dream and goes inside for tea as her sister ponders Alice's adventures. So this is the story of Alice's adventure in the Wonderland. Now let us see what is the theme behind this story. The Alice Adventure in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. The tragic and inevitable loss of childhood innocence. One theme is this. Throughout the course of Alice's adventure in Wonderland, Alice goes through a variety of absurd physical changes. The discomfort she feels at never being the right size acts as a symbol for the changes that occur during puberty. Alice finds these changes to be traumatic and feels discomfort, frustration, and sadness when she goes through them. She struggles to maintain a comfortable physical size. In chapter 1, she becomes upset when she keeps finding herself too big or too small to enter the garden. In chapter 5, she loses control over a specific body part when her neck grows to an absurd length. These constant fluctuations represent the way a child may feel as her body grows and changes during puberty. Life as a meaningless puzzle. In Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, Alice encounters a series of puzzles that seem to have no clear solution, which imitates the ways that life frustrates expectation. Alice expects that the situation she encounters will make a certain kind of sense, but they repeatedly frustrate her ability to figure out Wonderland. Alice tries to understand the caucus race, solve the Mud Hatter riddle, and understand the Queen's ridiculous croquet game, but to no avail. In every instant, the riddles and challenge present to Alice have no purpose or answers. So this is the death as a constant underlying menace, another theme behind this novel. Alice continually finds herself in situation in which she risks death, and while these threats never materialize, they suggest that death lurks just behind the ridiculous events of Alice's adventure in Wonderland as a present and possible outcome. Death appears in chapter 2 when the narrator mentioned that Alice would say nothing of falling off of her own house, since it would likely kill her. Alice takes risks that could possibly kill her, but she never considered death as a possible outcome. Over the time, she starts to realize that her experience in Wonderland are far more threatening. The characters involved in these novels there are various characters in this Wonderland. Like, first of all, we have an Alice, the 7-year-old protagonist of the story. Alice believes that the world is orderly and stable, and she is an insatiable curiosity about her surrounding. Wonderland challenges and frustrates her perception of world. The white rabbit, a frantic, harried Wonderland creature that originally leads Alice to Wonderland. The Queen of Hearts, the ruler of Wonderland, the Queen is severe and domineering, continually screaming for her subject to be beheaded. The Queen of Hearts, ruler of Wonderland, the King of Hearts, the Queen of Hearts, the Cheshire Cat, perpetually grinning cat who appears and disappears at will. The Cheshire Cat displays a detached, clear-headed logic. The Duchess, the Queen's uncommonly ugly cousin, the Duchess behaves rudely to Alice at first, but later treats her so affectionately that her advances feel threatening. The caterpillar Wonderland creature, the caterpillar sits on a mushroom, smokes a hookah, and treats Alice with contempt. So the Mad Hatter, the Marchier, Mad Hatter tea time or companion, Mad Hatter, a small impolite hatter who lives in a perpetual tea time, the Dormouse, a Mad Hatter Marchier's companion. These are the characters involved in this novel. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland is a very famous book written by children as well as by the adults also, by Lewis Carroll. This is one of the popular literature among the English literature.